Welcome in, everybody. This is the Dega race recap. And as you can tell, one of us is really, really happy because their driver found their
Me!
way into the oh, well, you won a lot of money.
I
So
know.
yeah, that guy's happy.
Fuck
My
Kyle
guy,
Busch, but I won money.
that guy right there won money. This guy right here, he got into victory lane. No green flags today, just checkered flags.
Oh
And a
no.
bow, and a bow, and a bow. But this is the Dega race recap. I'm Ryan Peters. That's Joe Spillman. This is Stuck in the Catch Fence. We're nuts. Cheers to Rowdy Nation. Lemonade on the docket
I
on
just
ice.
realized I just realized we're gonna get canceled.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. It's worth it.
I
I
said
mean, it's
I
not like
I
they're not
said
going
a
to share it
wordy.
out anyway, Joe.
I shared a wordy dirt.
Yeah, well, you can say it one time. It's kind of like a
Yeah.
PG-13. You can say that word once.
Okay,
So
yeah.
we're good.
All right, we're good.
We're good.
My
So
bad.
the Geico 500 just got finished. Joe was suffering from internet casualties because of whatever happened. Thankfully, that all happened before or after the race.
Yeah.
But we are here. Typically, we do this live. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that until, well, internet gets its stuff together. Let's just put
Yeah.
it that way,
I have
which will
I
be soon.
I have child care internet. You
Yeah,
have adult internet, I have child care internet.
and you should have had it before me, but in the name of equity, and we
Yeah.
that just didn't happen.
I signed up before you.
You did. You did. And everything's been working great. I've been on iRacing, getting my ass kicked by people that know what they're doing. I mean, I've been like 6 out of 13th, which
Yeah.
to me, first time, I'm okay with that. But it's really fun. It's also really hard. Um,
Does that
but
have an easy setting?
they have a beginner setting, which means you just do whatever the hell you want until you race cleanly. And I've been doing street stocks. I did street stock on dirt. That's really hard.
Mm,
Really hard. Found that
yeah.
out the hard way. So, but enough of all that. Enough of all that. Rowdy Nation. Victory number 2. It took 2 overtimes for Kyle Busch and a one very slight margin of space not to get hit by Bubba Wallace in the second overtime, so that Kyle Busch, for the first time, I think they said in 15 years, finds his way back into victory lane at Talladega. Joe, it was not the most exciting race, but I'm sure Rowdy Nation has never been more excited because how many times has Kyle Busch been on the wrong end, including Daytona earlier this year, where it just needed that much space to get into victory lane. And today, well, he kind of backs his way into victory lane.
I almost feel like the day's win at Talladega is kind of karma for the Daytona 500. I felt like he should have won the Daytona 500, and that the victory was snatched from him. So I think today was more of karma setting in. He kind of backed into a win, but you know what? At the end of the day, really, he did back into a win. If you're in position at a super speedway, if you're in the first 6 cars at a super speedway on a 2-lap restart, you've kind of set yourself up for a victory. I mean, yeah, Bubba took out half the field there with half a lap to go, but that's not Kyle Busch's fault.
No, it wasn't Kyle Busch's fault. You're right. And the funny part is he was nowhere to be found the entire race, racing between 12th and 15th. And oh my God, trying to move anywhere up the track today was impossible. There was no such thing as the third line. We tried to preface you guys on the betting show, which again, you would have made money if you tuned
Yeah,
in,
a lot.
because that's what we do is we make you money. Um, but it was really hard to move. We said on the betting show that the Xfinity race is probably going to be a way better race than the Cup Series race, and unfortunately, that ended up being the case. But at the end of the day, Rowdy, for the first time, I believe since before COVID, that's how I'll preface it, finds his way into victory lane twice in the season, only on the 10th race of the season. It seems like he's been in better equipment, but I thought one thing that I heard in the post-race show or post-race interview, he said he's never been more focused and hasn't worked this hard, at least in the last 8 years. And I think we're seeing that because he's taken what I think is less equipment into victory lane. Joe, as you know, I made a video that a lot of people can only look at the thumbnail, and it said,
You
"Is this
clown.
marriage working? Should we worry?" If you actually watch the video, number one, thank you. And number two, I said, no, you don't need to worry. I think everything's going to be okay outside of short tracks. I think everything's going to be okay. And it might even turn around this week. And it did. Kyle Busch finds his way into victory lane. Unfortunately for RCR, Austin Dillon was not very good today and finds his way to the back of the field. But I mean, you look at it right now, we have had two different winners, or excuse me, two wins for three drivers now with William Byron, Kyle Larson, and Kyle Busch. I think William Byron is obviously the biggest surprise, but Joe, I don't think a lot of people are surprised now that Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch stand atop of NASCAR, at least right now, when it comes to wins and what we've seen so far, because a lot of people believe those are the two best drivers in the sport.
Oh, I believe they're the two best drivers in the sport. Tony Stewart thinks that Kyle Larson is the best he's ever seen in his entire life, according to what he said today during the race. But yeah, I'm not surprised by this. And you talked about your video that you did. We shared out on Facebook, and I do want to let you know that same guy that called you a clown did reply after Kyle Busch's win today and said, "See, I told you, clown." And he still hasn't watched the video apparently. Just commenting on that thumbnail. But yeah,
Joe, let me explain punctuation. When it says, "Is it time to worry?"
Question mark,
sorry,
question
time
mark.
to worry. Yeah, question mark. That's asking a question.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Now,
Yeah.
it could say time to worry, period, and that is me making a statement.
Or an exclamation mark.
Or that would be really
like,
bad.
This is happening. But you put two question marks there. Two question marks implying like, is there really anything to worry about? But no. You just look at the thumbnail, automatically know what the video is about, and you comment. That's the way we do things now in society. We don't pay attention to what the actual content is. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. Kyle Busch won, and I am not surprised at all that this is his second win of the season. And I'm kind of laughing internally at JGR right now because RCR and Kyle Busch have 2 wins, and they have 0. And that makes my heart happy. Oh, I forgot. Yeah.
Christopher Bell on dirt.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. That one doesn't count. That was on dirt.
Well, you could put it this way. Kyle Busch has 2 wins and their 4-man team only has 1.
Yeah.
So
they have 0 on asphalt. How's that?
That would be factually correct. And that wouldn't need a thumbnail that says something regarding that. So yeah, it's been interesting. Joe, what do you think about Kyle Busch and Randall Burnett? Obviously, we all heard on the radio Randall Burnett, and if you don't know who that is, that's his crew chief, says that we need to get gas. And Kyle
Busch said no.
Too late.
Yeah, too late. No, I think didn't he say after the race or maybe I'm getting my comments mixed up, but I think he pretty much called an audible there. Like, look, we got to go. I mean, we got to take this chance. We come in for gas. We're not going to make it. We're not going to win.
That was my question. He said, well, I just figured we had to win, so might as well gamble. Do you think he really felt that way, or do you think he actually heard it too late? Because I'm not really sure which one.
I think, well, they were talking about it, right? And it looked like he was inching down there, and he was told, you got to pit, and it was already too late. And he said, too late. But it was just that matter of fact, too late, like, how, his personality. But I think the entire restart, and especially, who was it? Ty Gibbs that just ran out of gas right at the restart.
Yeah, helped. That's probably what helped Kyle Busch get the win, if we're being honest, because of the track position with the lower lane being stuck.
Yeah, so I think when he ran out of gas, I'm sure Kyle Busch knew that from either a spotter or somebody on the radio. And I think the entire last 2 laps, he's going, oh, shit. But I also, when you called me, see, your TV was just a tad bit ahead of mine, and you called me.
Internet.
Yeah. You called me right after the wreck had happened, right after the Bubba fiasco had happened. And, I'm telling you, don't celebrate yet. He's still got to make it all the way around the track. He's got like 2 miles to go. Oh, and you're going crazy. You're like, he's already crossed. And I was like, well, you're ahead of me then, because he's like in turn 4 right now.
Yeah, I want to read to you what I sent you, and this is the God's honest truth. I said, let me find it. I said, Kyle for on this restart. I said, Kyle gets the lead, wreck on white flag, runs out of fuel. That's the scenario, meaning that's what it's going to take to
Yeah.
win.
And
And
you,
almost verbatim, it went down. And I just I couldn't believe it. I never in my life have screamed for a yellow flag. I'm like watching because again, this wasn't a great race. I'm watching, and then I see Kyle get that big push, and I'm like, okay, well, Bubba's gonna wreck him. I mean, Bubba's like a nefarious pusher, and he was squirrely, but Kyle Busch, you'll see the difference between Kyle Busch being pushed and then Bubba Wallace being pushed, and which one could handle it and which one couldn't. And I don't even know like how skillful this is, if it was even possible, Joe. But Bubba Wallace starts to turn left, and Kyle, I don't know if I don't think the spotter could have told him in time, goes just enough down on the apron, which is a crazy move if at Talladega. I mean, this track sits like this. So to go from that to flat is a dangerous move. If you're in a car, this is what you see because of the Hans devices and all the things like that for safety. Just made enough of a move to make sure Bubba Wallace didn't hit him. And I am screaming. My throat still hurts. I sound funny. I'm like, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I went from 0 to like a million in terms of intensity, and it played out almost exactly like we said. And then Kyle said he ran out of gas when he was trying to do a burnout.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
mean,
what he was saying,
just wild.
he got a little white smoke going, but yeah, he ran out of gas pretty quickly. Just crazy how it comes down to, just that much. One thing I thought that that I don't want to overlook here, and maybe because I'm a fan, but I don't know. Did you see how hard Kyle Larson got hit? That was bad.
I honest to God, Joe, thank the Lord that was not on the driver's side
Yeah,
because
because it
Kyle
would have been
Larson would
bad.
be out for a while.
If not a long, long while.
The roll cage literally bent into a triangle, and we share a lot of wrecks on this show.
Yeah,
I
I've
mean,
never.
that's our. I have never seen a sign impact, and the crazy thing is, they have the in-car camera with Priest, and he shifts up to try to
Yeah,
haul balls. And it's not Priest's fault. He can't see nothing. Kyle Larson's actually in the grass when he decides to shift up. And unfortunately, it just goes right up the track. And as hard as Kyle Larson hit Ty Dillon last year,
yeah, that was hard.
man, this might have been harder.
Well, and really, you see Ryan Priest, and they take it to the in-car camera, like you said, and he shifts up and guns it, and I bet he hit Kyle Larson's car at every bit of 190 miles an hour, just broadsided that thing, and buckled the roll cage on the inside. And you're absolutely right. I was surprised that Kyle Larson came out and spoke as fast as he did, and if you watch his interview coming out of the infield care center, you could tell, like, just kind of his mannerisms. You could tell. I'm like, I think he's a little concussed. And Ryan Priest hit him so hard that if you watch that in-car camera, it throws his visor and everything back, and Ryan Priest looks like he's knocked out for a second. It was insane, and it didn't even look that bad in real speed, in real time.
Yeah, I wish Joe we would have been able to have a G-force counter on that to see what type of G's that hit had, not just for Kyle Larson but for Ryan Priest as well. I mean, because you could see Ryan Priest, it almost you could see his chest just go ooh, like
Yeah.
all of that at once, and that's when you see the visor flip up and he's like you could tell that that really
Yeah,
effing
and
hurt.
you could tell he didn't say he. I think he saw Kyle Larson coming up because as you said, when you're sitting in that car, you don't have any peripheral vision, and I think he saw it as he was coming forward. He saw Kyle Larson's car down in the grass, maybe inching its way up the track, and he said, "I gotta go." And you could tell when he hit that car head on, he had no idea he was about to hit it. It was as that was proverbial. That shit came out of nowhere. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was bad. That's one of them wrecks that you look at, in auto racing and go, that's not that bad. And then somebody ends up being really hurt out of it. And Kyle Larson and NASCAR, everybody, really lucky that wasn't on the driver's side.
It's amazing, Joe, after watching the Xfinity race, to watch a car flip 7 or 8 times. And really anymore, I'm kind of numb to that. I'm like, oh, he'll be okay. They're meant to do that. But then when you see a car just hit
Right.
and that force just doesn't dissipate, you're like, ooh, that's scary. There's nothing ripping from the car. There's nothing coming off the car. So internally, that's where that G force is hitting, and that's where you go, oh, that's not good.
I would say in an Xfinity car or a Gen 6 car, that impact probably would have not been felt as much by the drivers per se, because it would have been dispersed around the whole car. We know with these next gen cars that they have a terrible problem. Look at Kurt Busch, of dispersing the energy, and the driver feels it all. So I know that they did some things to the rear end of the cars this year to make things break and absorb energy a little bit better. But as far as I know, no adjustments have been made to the side of the cars, around the door panels or anything like that. So I'm sure that Kyle Larson and Ryan Preece felt that. Both of them felt that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. You're right. I also think that it also showed how safe the car was, because they didn't even have to go. They were in the infield care center and immediately came out. So that's a good sign.
Right.
It seems like the head and rear are what really have a hard time, because those don't cave in at all. And we did see Kyle Larson's car. It was effed up, for no better words to put it. It did show some damage to it. It's the front and the rear of those cars. They just don't crumple anymore. And that's where that shock happens. But unfortunately, that was the second mistake by Noah Gragson, who was front for most of the day as the rookie, but ended up forcing a wreck right there. He got pushed out of the way. A lot of people are going to blame it on Chastain. I'm not going to lie to you. Immediately, I thought it was Chastain too, because he never gets the benefit of the doubt. But I also thought there was just a whole line of cars pushing each other there. Noah Gragson got pushed out of line. Instead of taking his medicine and coming back, I thought he tried to come back down, and that just started chaos, and that's how that accident started. And then, of course, he just wrecked Harrison Burton, who was out front doing a good job, and what could have been a crazy Burton weekend, as Jeb ended up winning the Xfinity Series the day before.
Well, and I mean, you got to also talk about Kyle Larson a little bit on that wreck. He was pushing awfully hard himself. So, I think Kyle Larson may have checked up a little too suddenly, a little too late, because it seemed like that's what really caused the chain reaction there. But yeah, and bringing up your point about Gragson and Harrison Burton, I really do think that I'm going to chalk that up as Gregson. That was just a mistake, I think.
Yep. It was a rookie mistake.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I don't think there was any purpose behind it or any intent to wreck Harrison Burton. I just think that he pushed him where you can't push, and those are things you'll find out in this car.
Yeah. That was just, and it almost looked like they hit that little bump that comes out of the last turn there, and I think it surprised Gragson a little bit, and really surprised Burton, I think. So.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Burton literally got caught in both of Noah Gragson's mistakes. But let's go ahead and look at the rest of the field. This is the final order. A lot of people, including myself, thought Ryan Blaney had a really good chance today. He's finished in the top 5, I believe, 5 times now in the last 5 Talladega races. Ends up with a number 2. These 2 cars, and Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher, were nowhere to be found the entire race. But at the end of the day, will be the first time that RFK, or however you want to put it, Roush Racing ends up with 2 drivers in the top 10 since Trevor Bayne and Ricky Stenhouse. So there's some name dropping for you. The last time that Roush had 2 drivers in the top 5. Chase Briscoe had a hell of a day. He ended up being stuck on pit road, doing donuts on pit road, and fought his way all the way back to get a top 5.
2 laps down.
Yeah. Yep. Long day, those 500 miles. Eric Jones, a much needed top 10 after what he's been through. William Byron was horrible the entire day, finds his way into a top 10. Todd Gilliland gets his way into a top 10. Oh, JJ Yaley, Joe, he was in 8th place and they must have moved him down.
Yeah, they moved him down. He did. He finished in eighth. I don't know. I watched it. I watched the replay. I don't know why he got moved down. I saw that a little bit ago. Yeah, I'm not real sure what happened there. It looked to me like he should have had an eighth place finish in the top 10. I don't know that JJ Yeley's ever had a top 10 finish in the Cup Series.
Has.
Has
Do you
he?
want to guess how long it's been?
Oh man, it's more than 10 years. It's got to be.
I was a senior in high school the last time JJ Yaley had a top 10 in 2008.
Okay.
So that was with the number 11 at JGR. So
Yeah.
still a good day for JJ.
Yeah.
And then kind of looking down, Ty Dillon actually was really good today. He was up front quite a bit. Chase Elliott never in contention. You pretty much say that for everybody besides Kyle Larson, Joe, when it came to Hendrick Racing. Not nearly as fast as what we've seen out of Daytona, but
Right.
ends up getting 12th place, which I'm sure a 10th and a 12th place coming off a broken leg, Chase Elliott would take it.
Yeah.
But he does need to get a win. BJ Mother effing McLeod gets an 18th. At some point, I looked on the scoreboard and Kyle Busch was behind BJ McLeod, and I said, it's going to be one of those days.
Well, and so if you when we go back and we did our betting tips, I said it pretty much anybody could win this race, I think, but JJ Yeley, BJ McLeod, and Ty Dillon, and Ty Dillon led a couple laps. BJ McLeod finishes 18th, and JJ Yeley almost has a top 10.
I mean, you think about this. BJ McLeod gets a top 20 and 2 Rick Ware racing cars get in the top 20. I mean, that's a hellacious day. That's a super speedway race.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of that is just avoiding the big wreck, and that's what they did.
Incredible. Other than, I mean, we'll call it for what it is, other than the boring race that we saw all day, but we alluded to that not only in our weekly show, but also our betting show that we said the other night when we did our betting show that the Xfinity race was probably going to be a better race. And we kind of pinpointed that, these cars are going to run, in 2 lanes. They're going to, lock up, get right behind each other, and we're going to watch follow the leader for 188 laps. And that's essentially what we got to see. I think moving forward, and this might be a topic for another day, but moving forward, I really think that NASCAR, we talked about short tracks and what needs fixed there. Talladega is a racetrack that typically you get to see some of the most exciting super speedway racing. Sometimes more exciting than Daytona, if not on par with Daytona all the time. And that's because, a lot of times that track is wide enough, it's banked enough. You could see 4 wide racing legitimately around that track the entire way, and there's room for it. But now we have a car that you can't side draft with at all. You can't get runs unless you're locked up with somebody, because you can't side draft because we put a rear diffuser. NASCAR's put a rear diffuser on the car that takes all the ability to side draft away. And I think that is something that, at least for Talladega, probably needs to come back, because it has hindered the quality of the race that we typically have seen at Talladega. That Xfinity race was, the wreck fest of 2023. But outside of that, I mean, I know we all don't want to watch 1,000 wrecks. They were legitimate wrecks. They were racing wrecks. They weren't, I don't know how to drive on this track like we saw at Atlanta Motor Speedway for 4 hours. It was, we're racing and we're racing hard, and that's what causes wrecks. And we saw some spectacular wrecks. Not that that's what we're here to see, but we also saw some spectacular racing. Today in the Cup Series, we did not see spectacular racing. We watched follow the leader until NASCAR overtime, and that's the only time we really got to see good racing today. And that makes for a boring race, especially at Talladega, where you want to see excitement.
Well, and at the end of the day, Joe, 21st through 38th, we're all involved in a wreck. I mean,
Right.
So you don't change a lot by saying, we're going to change this so you can't draft, you can't be that much together. But, Joe, we saw more movement, and we were there at Atlanta, drivers at least being able to switch lines, go down, and pass. Now, it was one at a time. Don't get me wrong, it was one at a time. But we still were able to see it. Today, nothing.
No.
You just hope your line to end up going faster, and it can't. And these cars, when it comes to that third lane, they get out of line and it's like a parachute gets tied onto the back of that car because of the way the air hits with having that huge ass spoiler in the back. And it's just not been the greatest racing that we've ever seen. And that's coming from a guy who his driver ended up in victory lane. I mean, I texted you throughout. I'm like, this is not a good race,
It's
and
not.
if
It
we're
wasn't.
gonna, we typically do our quick question, but I had to celebrate my win, and I think we both simultaneously would tell you today was not a good race. I don't know what it's going to be voted on. My guess is probably 50-50 because I think a lot of people, especially Joe, like casual fans, will see cars side by side at 195 miles an hour the entire time and go, yeah, that's pretty exciting. Um, but we've seen better, but we've also seen worse. We've seen single file racing at super speedways. We've seen two car tandems. Those were the days before the internet. So I don't know if we all got to collectively bitch about it like we do now when it comes to our racing. But at the end of the day, we're basing it of what we've already seen that's worked. And I think that's what most people need to understand is we've seen a formula that's worked before. We've went away from it. We've seen a short track package that has worked before. We're going away from it. And I think, make no mistakes about it, it's because we keep taking speed away from these cars. Do you remember at Talladega, you would touch 200. It's impossible to touch 200 anymore. And I think that's another part of it too. There's just too much drag on these cars.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, you know, uh, you expect and you should be able to touch 200 at Talladega. You should be able to touch 205 at Talladega. It's certainly possible. But I also think that they really need to take a hard look at being able to side draft because that's what makes the race exciting. That's what we saw in the Xfinity race. You can get out of line and make a pass. We saw that in the Xfinity race.
Yeah,
It's a
you're
whole
right.
lot easier to create that third line as well. And that's why nobody was doing that today. I think we saw that third line break out 3 times today. And I think Corey LaJoie was responsible for it twice. And he was taking the risk and people would get behind him, but there was just not enough momentum over there without being able to get a little side draft. Both the middle lane typically, uh, when you're able to side draft for whatever reason goes backward, and I can't explain it because I'm not a drafting guy to understand it, but typically when you would see that middle lane, when you would see 3 lanes at Talladega, that middle lane would just go backward, and it was something to do with the draft and the side draft coming off the cars. But you were able to effectively run 3 lines, and we just didn't see that today. We saw it once. I think it got Bubba Wallace back up to the front, getting out in that
Yeah.
in that high line one time, but it just to me wasn't the quality of race that you're typically used to seeing at Talladega. And I think we saw that twice last year as well. So I don't know what the real fix is. I think that this one car fits all solution that was touted for 3 years and then we saw it come to fruition last year. I don't think that was the all encompassing answer that NASCAR was looking for. And I think maybe it's time to reopen this bag of nuts, bag of bolts, essentially, and say, we got a little thinking to do on whether this car is actually going to be sustainable for road courses, short tracks, and super speedways and intermediate tracks. Because right now, what I think you have is a really good car for intermediate mile and a halves and road courses. And then when you look at super speedways and you look at short tracks, I think we need a different answer.
And I think too, Joe, we're seeing the learning curve's gone. That was a lot of it too. We had a lot of good races at the beginning of the year. I remember going, shoot, almost all the way to the playoffs, Joe, and go, man, we just didn't have a bad race outside the Martinsville race. And we chucked that up. There was 30-degree weather. We're just like, okay,
Right.
it's just freezing cold outside. Now, I mean, we're like, what, 50-50
Right.
on whether it's a good race or whether it's not a good race. And, and I think now that error or that margin of error has been decreased. So now these drivers are really pretty much the same and it's making it really, really hard to pass. And there needs to be better rule or better packages on these cars. I think less is more when it comes to the things they have on them outside of horsepower. They just need to find a better way for that. And right now, we just haven't had it, and unfortunately, it's not led to some great racing that we're typically used to seeing. I just can imagine coming off of a back to back you and me going Martinsville, Talladega, both would be terrible races.
And
That never happens. I mean, it just never happens.
it
And
should,
that's where we're at.
yeah, and it shouldn't have happened. But Like I said, I don't know. I don't know what we do to fix this. I mean, obviously, you and I, sitting here as we're sitting, can't fix it. But you know, hopefully NASCAR does get its act together and try to come up with at least a solution. I'm sure there's a solution that can be, um, you know, there's a solution that can be done and added or taken away from these cars that make this a little bit better. I don't know if changing the way the rear diffuser works on this car helps the ability to side draft or not. I just don't know. I'm not educated on that subject enough, but I do know since the addition of the rear diffuser on this next gen car that there hasn't been side drafting anywhere.
Right. Right. And the car is more symmetrical. The rear fenders don't stick out as much, which, changes a little bit of the air too. But you're right. All the air is intended to go underneath the car.
Right.
And then that's why we don't have any air on the side. And there's no point in side drafting if there's no air going on the side of the car. One last thing, Joe, and we'll wrap it up here. Because again, it just wasn't a great race. Obviously, me being a Kyle Busch fan, I could talk for an hour about that and how fun that was. But when it comes to the race, we'll probably save a lot of that stuff for Wednesday because there's just stuff that we have to do that, talk about that could take all night long. And this is a topic we've talked at nauseum. And I typically don't like bringing it up because we've already said it. Everybody's already said it. But I'm going to tell you this. For the first time in a long time watching that race, and I am now convinced moving forward that if NASCAR wants to grow its audience, they're going to have to either tell Fox to do a complete overhaul or get rid of Fox.
Oh my God.
I'm
terrible.
telling you, the 2 times we got to see four wide racing, we didn't get to see four wide racing. It was like you could tell it finally got a third lane. So we never got to see that develop. We got to hear about it. Then they get 4 wide racing, and Mike Joy comes back and goes, "Yeah, that was some great racing we saw there 4 wide." And we're like, "Yeah, would have been nice.
Yeah,
would have been nice
to see it." And another thing that they do, not only cutting the commercial, if you got to have commercial, they should. I've said this ad nauseum. They should never do anything but go to side by side so you can at least watch the race while you're
especially at Talladega.
Yeah. But also, when you look at the position tree that they have it on the left side of the screen, which takes up part of your screen. I don't understand why it's not at the top or bottom. When they do their stupid crank it up thing, which I'm sorry, I know a lot of people like that, but it's just whatever. You put the position tree or the rankings up at the top of the screen. Why do you have it on the left side of the screen the entire race? I don't understand that. It takes up a quarter of your screen, and the cameraman doesn't know that. So because they're taught to shoot center of the screen,
right?
And everything's out of frame with that. It's dumb. I don't know. I'm sick of Fox. I'm actually sick of Mike Joy. I used to be a fan of Mike Joy. I'm sick of him. I'm sick of the people. I'm just sick of their whole coverage. And you're absolutely right. They either need a complete overhaul on the way that they broadcast these races, maybe sit down and watch F1 or even IndyCar for a couple months and take some notes, because those 2 racing circuits put on great broadcasts. IndyCar goes to commercial, but they go to side by side. You never miss anything. So at the end of the day, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Fox needs a complete overhaul on the way that they cover races.
Yeah, and it's to the point, and this is somebody that loves this sport. I got so mad, I was like, I think I'm going to turn it to something else for a minute, just because I was so sick and tired of not being able to, number one, watch a product on what I'm trying to watch. I'm invested into NASCAR, and I'm trying to watch it, and I can't. And then number 2, you get back for 3 minutes, and they do a side-by-side. Because we wanted to see Bob Pockrass dressed like a fucking box of fries and dance. Like, who gives a shit?
Yeah. Who's that Bob Pockrass sighting?
I mean, just like, it's just the most tone deaf, like, I just don't get it. I just simply don't get it. It's frustrating. It's if you've never watched NASCAR before, it literally would be one of the reasons you would turn it off, because it's like, well, shit, you can't even watch a race. It's like trying to watch a movie on cable, like on Comedy Central or something like that, except there's a commercial every single scene of that movie versus like every 30 minutes.
Right. We're going to catch a race with some of our commercials. And that's the approach that they take. And I will tell you this, I'm a Tony Stewart fan, always have been. Listening to him though sometimes is about like listening to Ben Stein a little bit, but when he is the best person in the booth, when you have him in there and he's the easiest person to listen to, I think that's an issue. When Tony Stewart is easily the best broadcaster you have in the booth, when he comes back and the weeks that he's here, I think that's an issue, and I think that should be a glaring problem that Fox needs to look at right now.
Yeah, and I'm not convinced that the three people in the booth every Sunday aren't the three lowest talent-wise that Fox has. With Adam Alexander, even Jamie Little does a tremendous job whenever she gets to call truck races, and all these different. I mean, even Reagan or not Reagan. Yeah, is it Reagan on Pit Road? I think he does a great job when he has the opportunity to speak. There's so much talent that knows the sport, and they put Clint Boyer up there, Mike Joy, who does not love this anymore. You can tell the passion is completely gone out of Mike Joy, and maybe it's because they know the broadcast package sucks. I have no idea, but I mean, it's just to the point anymore that the Cup race you're getting B- quality, and that's if they're doing their best. But you can't even watch the race anymore. You literally are not able to watch the race. And if you want people to enjoy your product, you have to then show them said product. And then, they go to their stingers, and it's a bunch of guys that aren't even winning. It showed 6 drivers today. 2 of them have won a championship.
Yeah.
And they got, it's the last year of Kevin Harvick. Haven't seen nothing on him on a Fox Stinger. Nothing. Not once. He's won a championship, made his 800 start today, and the only person that could tell you that was Kevin Harvick. He had to do that while he was looking inside Ryan Preece's car. It's just so bad anymore, and I know we've beaten this horse to death, but
yeah, the only thing
I think it's holding back NASCAR's progression.
Yeah, the only thing I learned from Fox's coverage is apparently Clint Boyer got drunk last night and acted like a complete idiot because they referenced that several times. And talked more about Clint Boyer getting drunk and having a headache today last night and acting like a complete buffoon. I can only imagine what that guy's like drunk. Probably an asshole. And they don't talk about Kevin Harvick's 800 start at all. Mention it maybe one time. It's just terrible coverage. You hit the nail on the head when you said they need a complete overhaul, because they do. Everybody needs to go. I'm tired of it. I can't wait until Fox's coverage is over. I said this last year. And I'll say it again. It's just trash. It is completely trash.
No, you're right. And I used to think that maybe we were being too hard on them, but I don't anymore. I literally, for the first time, Joe, was sitting there going, I think I want to turn this off, because it was like I could end up reading on Twitter what is happening and know what's going on more than actually watching the race. And that's asinine. I mean, somebody on Twitter had a great idea. They said they should develop an app that lets you know when the last 10 laps are. I'm like, you're absolutely right. They should do that when Fox is covering it, because you won't see shit until the last 10 laps anyway.
Right. Yeah. Asinine.
So, again, I know we've been there. You probably are tired of hearing it, but I'm tired of watching it. I'm just so sick and tired of we're literally invested into this sport. And the hardest thing we have to do on a weekly basis is have the ability to watch said sport. That's dumb. I mean, that's just completely dumb. And somebody that's went to a racetrack with me last week in Martinsville goes, wow, I never realized how bad this was until I went to the race. I'm like, yeah, the coverage sucks, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, it's that bad.
Well, and that's it too. Like, if you want to see a real race, go to a race, because you're not going to get the full. If you watch a baseball game on TV, you get to see a baseball game. You watch a football game, for the most part, you get to see a football game. I mean, unless you're just, your understanding of football is a little bit better than average. You see everything that you need to see from the TV. You can't be if all you've ever seen is a race on TV, you're always going to be a casual fan, because you don't understand the enormity that actually is the racetrack and everything that's actually going on, because the broadcast will never show you that. I think you could probably watch F1 and get that, because they show everything.
Yep.
You could probably watch IndyCar and get that because they show everything and they talk about everything and they explain everything. On Fox, you're going to get, man, Clint Boyer, you acted like a jackass last night when you got drunk. Hey, here's Bob Pockrass dancing. Oh, we just had a wreck. Let's cut to commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
We got the four wide racing. Hopefully, we still have it whenever you get to see us.
Yeah.
And one last thing. Today, a stage break lasted 15 minutes, 8 laps at Talladega. That is asinine to have 15 minutes, which 10 of them were commercial, and then get 3 laps of racing and then cut to another commercial. The whole point of the stage breaks was for commercials and fans to go get up, do whatever they needed to do. I understand if you're going to have the 15 minutes for stage breaks. If you don't have commercials during the actual green flag race, we don't have that. It is the worst possible broadcasted sport on television right now when Fox has it.
Yeah, welcome back to Talladega. While you were gone, we had a 34-car pileup. This happened 12 minutes ago, 2 minutes into the commercial, the 12-minute commercial break, but we just couldn't cut back to it. They're just getting cleaned up now, and we'll get back to racing here shortly.
Yeah, we had to play that stupid-ass Dodge commercial that says I'm tough like a truck. I will never buy a Dodge because of that commercial that I've heard 4,000 times.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
And apparently my daughter
and Dodge isn't even in fucking NASCAR anymore.
No, it isn't. And apparently my daughter likes that car because every time that commercial comes on, she starts singing too. And I'm over it.
Yep, Layla's the same way. It's terrible. So, well, that was our final soapbox so that we can wrap this up. Again, thank you for joining us. Like and subscribe. We hope that you do. We had a great engagement when it comes to liking people liking our videos and subscribing this week. Hopefully, we're able to give you a few shorts out this week, depending upon, if the powers that be let us. We are running a giveaway. So if you want to comment down low, and I want to thank the Chainsaw Gang actually gave us his 5 drivers. So whenever we do the weekly show, we will see how he stacked compared to us.
Yeah.
That being said, he didn't do a driver below 20th, but Joe, I think we're good enough. We don't need it.
Yeah, we'll give him a waiver.
So shout out to you. Appreciate you doing that. Again, a couple people have entered for the diecast. All you have to do is like, subscribe, and then comment down below your favorite driver that you would like to win a diecast on our videos. We'll tally that up when we get to 500, and I will make sure that you get a nice diecast as a token of you fornicating with the subscribe button. That's all we ask. Yeah, doing a little foreplay and growing with us. So that's going to wrap it up for Dega, the Geico 500. Rowdy in victory lane for the second time. This has been Stuck in the Catchments.